Yo, what's happening guys, and welcome back to a brand new Modern Warfare video. In today's video, we're going to be looking at Modern Warfare in 2020. Does it still suck? Now, I don't think the game necessarily sucks, but a lot of people do, and a lot of people quit Call of Duty pretty early on this year. I think this year's Call of Duty was really successful. A lot of people bought the game, but the core Call of Duty community, and generally people who are quite good at the game and stuff like that, this is definitely not most people's favourite Call of Duty. I do think people from different games, maybe like Battlefield, Rainbow Six Siege, people who are more into the tactical shooter scene, I think those people do love Call of Duty this year. But I do want to talk about it. Does the game still suck? Like I said, I don't necessarily think that it completely sucks. I do think it sucks in a lot of ways. I want to cover all of the points that basically a lot of people have been talking about and giving feedback on since launch. So if you're one of those people who quit the game a couple of weeks after launch, this video should basically cover a lot of the stuff that maybe you were complaining about, and I'll basically give you guys an update on just what I think has happened and, you know, how Infinity Ward has dealt with the community. Today's video is a bit more of a chilled out, just more of a chillax sort of talking video. If you guys do like these types of videos, please drop a like. Be sure to subscribe if you want to see more of this type of content, and yeah, leave me a comment down below letting me know if you guys still play Modern Warfare, or just generally what your experience is with this game, if you think it sucks, if you think it's great. I think this is, once again, I say this in every video, this game has the potential to be the best Call of Duty ever. Just for me, there's a few things that make it kind of frustrating to play daily. Anyway, hopping into it guys, I made a little list here on, I made a little notepad list here. First off, we'll talk about like perk imbalances and weapon imbalances and stuff like that first. So the perks in this game are pretty imbalanced, I think, from the get-go. You can probably hear my son, he's crying downstairs. But yeah, a couple of perks that stand out that are not really worthwhile or not really balanced would be Ghost, for instance. A lot of people were complaining about Ghost not having the effect that if you're sitting still, it will still show up on the radar. That is still a thing in the game. Ghost is very, very powerful still. Infinity Ward did talk to Swag at one of the events, and you know, they said to him that's the way it's always been. Ghost is absolute, you know, it'll basically cover you even if you're not moving. Obviously the main argument against this that most people, and myself included, would have is if you look at Call of Duty 4 and Modern Warfare 2, it was in contention with Stopping Power and Juggernaut and other perks like Lightweight and stuff like that, which were very, very useful. So even though people still used Ghost in those games, if they're camping in the corner and not moving, they would have to shoot people an extra 1 or 2 times, depending on which perks the other person's using, and there was some sort of a balance there. With this year's Call of Duty, the only one that I would actually use apart from that would be either Kill Chain or Restock. I would use Kill Chain in Ground War. Obviously there was a bug with that which allowed you to overlap streaks. And Restock obviously is very, very OP with the Claymores. That's what I would use most. Personally, I don't care if people know where I am. I kind of move about a decent amount. I kind of play the game where I patrol a certain area, get to a certain building where they're going to be coming for you a lot, and you know, to stock up with Claymores. I know it's a really bad way to play, but you know, if it's in the game, use it, I suppose. It's better than camping in the corner with Ghost, in my opinion. For sure, those two perks are very, very broken. In my opinion, you know, to balance restock, you probably shouldn't be able to restock Claymores and Bouncing Betties to make it a little bit less campy. And obviously with, you should not be hidden from UAVs if you're just camping in the corner and stuff like that. So if you guys are wondering about that, those still are issues in the game. The only other ones that really come to mind here is that Dead Silence is still not a perk. They have done some work with the sound in the game, and they've actually, in my opinion, made the sound worse. It's very, very inconsistent. You can no longer consistently hear footsteps up close anymore, but at the same time, you don't really hear people from as far away, because they've added like occlusions effects where footsteps get drowned out by other like kill streaks and certain things that's happening on the map. So overall, the sound in the game, it probably is better than it was at the start, but it still is very, very inconsistent. And, you know, once again, I think if Dead Silence was a perk and the sound was basically how it was at launch, but maybe toned down range-wise a little bit, I don't think we would be having this sort of issue with Dead Silence not being a perk. So yeah, overall, I think the perks are still pretty imbalanced. EOD is still not very effective against explosives either. It's just really not a great competition for perks. I mean, perks like 1, you're more often than not going to take EOD or Cold-Blooded if you're taking out kill streaks. Perk 2, it's Ghost or Restock, and perk 3, I use Shrapnel, which again is another pretty OP perk in combination with Restock. Not only does it give you an extra Claymore or explosive to start off with, it stops the opponent from healing, and with EOD being not a very good perk in this game and basically leaving you on the brink of death every time you hit a Claymore, that combination is quite overpowered, and I think it could have been balanced better. So moving on here to all our imbalanced stuff, some of the biggest complaints about imbalanced weapons would have been the M4A1 and the 725. In my opinion, those are both still pretty busted. The 725 got heavily nerfed. I think just shotguns in this game generally are just very OP and annoying, so I would say that they haven't improved that much. I'm still getting one-shotted from one door to another. They still are very frustrating to come up against. So I don't think they really balance shotguns that well. Definitely still not as bad as they were at launch. I know some shotgun users would disagree with me, but personally I just hate shotguns. I don't think they take much skill to use. The M4A1 is by far the most dominant assault rifle. It's actually got a bit of a rival now. The Ram 7, which is a DLC weapon, is actually really good, and it's about on par, if not slightly better than the M4. But usually if I pull out an M4, I can do very, very well with it. And compared to, let's say, like the AK-47, the Scar, and even the Kilo, which is a really, really good assault rifle, I do feel like the M4 is still pretty dominant. So in terms of gun balancing, I feel like they didn't do a great job. The MP5 and MP7 are still the dominant SMGs in the game as well. I think that is something that they could have taken into consideration, and something that could have been a lot better. So moving on here, let's talk about... I'm going to probably combine like skill-based matchmaking and connections, because I feel like they go hand in hand a little bit. A lot of people had very bad connection issues with the game. So for instance, if you're a high skill player, you may not find matches in your own region due to skill-based matchmaking. In a recent test done by Exclusive Ace, he tested it again, and the results were pretty similar to what he tested before. And obviously from my experience living in Japan, I find myself playing on like 100 ping or 150 ping from time to time. Even in Ground War, you know, I do find myself getting put onto different hosts quite a lot, which is pretty frustrating. And whenever you do get put onto your own host at times, obviously you're getting matched up with people of a similar level. I done a whole video on skill-based matchmaking explaining why it's terrible, and I think, you know, the subject's pretty worn out. The only thing that I haven't really talked about skill-based matchmaking is there's supposed to be an algorithm in the game which will actively reduce the amount of damage that your weapons do, and reduce the amount of health that you have, and like change your dead zone, and things like give you less aim assist, things like give opponents more health based on skill-based matchmaking. So for example, if somebody's getting absolutely destroyed, they may take an extra couple of shots, or you may find that your bullets are going straight through people. This was coming from a patent that people dug up from Activision a couple of years ago, that they're looking at doing stuff like this. I think it is in the game. I don't think it's that heavy, but I think sometimes it does bug out, which is why you'll see at times where people will literally just put full clips through people. And I've seen myself putting full clips through people. Whether it's skill-based matchmaking or just bad connection, I don't think it's acceptable for a game of this stature, and a game that's made billions in the first week and stuff like that. The servers and skill-based matchmaking should not be affecting gunfights that much, and the game is still running on some 12Hz servers and 24Hz servers in Ground War, which again is unacceptable, and it should not be allowed for a game of this size to be running such bad servers. Obviously the netcode in Call of Duty for the last couple of years has not been the greatest, and this year is no exception. They haven't done any reduction to skill-based matchmaking as far as any of us can tell, and I do think it is a big issue in the game still. It's kind of getting to the point where if you were a brand new Call of Duty player this year and you have gotten better, you're probably experiencing the same kind of frustrations that the core Call of Duty community was experiencing at the start. So in terms of skill-based, I think they will probably tone it down in a couple of months towards the end of the game's life cycle, but as things stand, it is still as bad as ever, if not worse, because people are just getting better at the game and learning different little spots. So that is still a frustration for many of us. A little tip on that, guys: play 10v10 if you don't want to get as heavy skill-based matchmaking. That's pretty much all I play. Ground War as well does not have the same level because it's harder for them to fill out lobbies, and they do more connection-based matchmaking in those game modes. So if you guys see me streaming 10v10, that's absolutely why, and I hope they add some more 10v10 maps. Now, speaking of adding maps, lack of content was a big issue that the game had at the beginning. The game launched with 6 6v6 maps. I think it launched with 1 or 2 Ground War maps, a handful of gunfight maps, and a handful of 10v10 maps. For the core Call of Duty community who likes playing 6v6, it was a pretty terrible start to the year. Piccadilly is widely considered as one of the worst maps ever. Rumaza, in my opinion, was one of the worst maps. Since it's been added to 10v10, I've actually liked it a lot more. St. Petrograd was quite a campy map, which will lead into one of my points in a few moments here. Upon launch, you had Hackney Yard and Gunrunner as the 2 decent sort of maps in the game, and I mean, if you were making a tier list of the best Call of Duty maps, I doubt any of those would get into like S tier or A tier. they would probably be down to like a B or C. They're definitely not some of the best maps we've seen in the series, which is pretty unfortunate. So since launch, they've added a couple of new 6v6 maps. Shoot House, which is probably a fan favourite in this game. I think if you put Shoot House into any other game, it would not be that popular. It's just the fact that we've kind of lowered our expectations for maps in this game at this point. A lot of the maps were so bad that anything that barely resembles a Call of Duty map, we'll accept at this point, which is kind of sad. They've added Shoot House, Crash, which they added doors to, and a lot of new like head glitches and stuff like that. Shipment, which in my opinion they've completely destroyed it, and it's in contention for one of the worst maps ever with the spawns and everything like that. They tilted the containers, they took away some of the safer spawns, they've added verticality to Shipment, and you guys have seen the videos by now of people just sitting in the corner with a Wilson, just completely spawn killing everything. Shipment is a mess, and you know, whenever they actually added Shipment and Vacant into the game, Vacant in fairness is pretty similar except for the doors. It was basically a Vacant 24/7 playlist because they never give us the ability to stay in a lobby, they never give us the ability to vote for maps. According to them, the idea behind this was that people skip the map. If they don't get the map that they're looking for, they'll just leave the lobby. Well, obviously it doesn't really make sense because I'm sure people are backing out of lobbies in this game more than ever. There are only a few maps that people like, and especially when you put in a new playlist with new maps, the only maps that I was able to find was like 80% Vacant, maybe 90% Vacant, maybe 1 in 10 games was Shipment. If they even added a vote to skip or a random or like something like that, just normal Call of Duty map votes, we'd be able to choose whatever maps we want to play, and getting into a game would be less frustrating. For me in 10v10, like having to play Euphrates Bridge is just a no-go. On that map you just get sniped from everywhere. I just can't stand it. In my opinion, some of you guys might like it if you're sniping, but it's the worst Call of Duty map ever, like by far. I cannot think of anything worse than playing Euphrates Bridge. If we could just skip the map or vote for maps, that would make this game a lot better, and people would just not back out of lobbies. You know, so instead of people just backing out of lobbies because their vote didn't go through, people are backing out because they have no choice except for to play that one map. And with skill-based matchmaking, I just get put back into the same map over and over and over again. I literally refuse. That's the only map in the game. I'll play Piccadilly, I'll play anything else, just not Euphrates Bridge. I get stuck into it and I just can't get out of it, so it's kind of stupid. So apart from that, guys, I've added some more ground war maps. Verdansk, which is not really the most popular one. Krovnik Farmland, which is actually a really good map. It's a simple map, there's less verticality. It's a great map, I like it. It can be very imbalanced with the spawn sometimes, where like one side will completely dominate the other. But generally it feels good, it feels more like a Call of Duty map on a large scale. I think what they've done with Krovnik Farmland is exactly how most ground war maps should play out. It shouldn't be super complicated. Just Call of Duty on a big map, that's all we really want to play. They added Anaya Palace to ground war, which was a good idea. Smaller map, no tanks. Speaking of which, I'll just quickly note that tanks have not been nerfed, even though they've been complained about from day one of the beta. Day one of the beta, they've been complained about. But, you know, unfortunately, Josie Cott is a big fan of World of Tanks. Literally, he's a big fan of World of Tanks. He put on his Twitter how he loves playing World of Tanks. So if you guys want those nerfed, well, guess what? The guy who develops this game loves World of Tanks, dude, so unlucky, unlucky. But yeah, so on the content front, we had a couple of new weapons as well. The Ram 7, which I love. I really love that weapon, so that's a good addition in my opinion. It took about 24 hours of game time to level it up on the Battle Pass, which might be considered a little bit long. And the Holger 26, I believe it's called, which I don't think is particularly good. Some of you guys have told me it is really good, so I'm probably wrong on that one. But yeah, generally for DLC, they've added some of the old maps, which are pretty cool. In my opinion, they kind of ruined Crash and Vacant with the spawning system. They ruined Shipment with the spawns and how they changed the map around and the layout. Out of all of the maps that they've added, Krovnik Farmland and Shoot House are the only decent ones apart from the gunfight maps. Also the fact that they claimed that Season 1 was the biggest content drop in Call of Duty history, and literally in day 1 they just added Crash and the ground war map and I think a new gunfight map. They're kind of debating us, and you know, just briefly touching on communication. Infinity Ward's communication is absolutely dreadful. I think Ashton Williams on Twitter, all she really replies to is like people who are talking shit to her, and she just does childish responses. Like, they don't communicate with us about skill based, they don't communicate about, you know, stuff that we have issues with in the game, unless it's a bug, in which case they do communicate with us. But if there are any kind of gameplay aspects that we don't like about the game, they simply don't listen to us. As you can basically tell from this video, like a lot of the stuff that I've talked about already, they just haven't changed it, or done really baby step changes, because they believe in their vision more than they believe in their community, unfortunately. And I guess obviously we are the vocal minority, which we have talked about before. people who watch YouTube videos and make videos and who are good at the game. This game is not designed for us, unfortunately. Obviously, the way the maps are laid out is a testament to that. They've got doors that you can hide behind and put claymores behind doors. There's so many like lines of sight in a lot of the maps, like Euphrates Bridge, which I will not play. I'd rather put my balls in a fucking fish tank full of piranhas than play that map. It is so bad. Like, it is actually the worst map I've ever played in any game that I've ever put my hands on. I hate Euphrates Bridge. And a lot of the maps have some similar features where there's so many lines of sight and the game is just designed to be random. So yeah, a lot of that stuff hasn't been touched. The game is still pretty slow paced. A lot of games of free-for-all and stuff like that don't get up to 30 kills. TDM games and kill-confirmed games don't get up to full score. They still haven't adjusted the mini-map. It needs to be zoomed out and we need to see red dots when people are shooting. They really haven't made an effort to listen to the community. I think that is the main thing that you guys could possibly take away from this video, is that they've added stuff. I think they've tried to do their own thing, but when it comes to actually listening to Call of Duty fans and the core community, they've completely ignored us this year, and in fact, they just listen to haters. They reply to them on Twitter, making little childish remarks about haters. They do not communicate with us, and it is unfortunate because, once again, this could be the best Call of Duty ever. For me, dude, I put this on my Twitter. If you guys want to follow me on social media, guys, link to my Instagram, Twitter, go drop me a follow on one of those down in the description down below. But I did say on Twitter, I think yesterday, that I'm basically only playing Modern Warfare to keep myself sharp for Battle Royale. The 200 player Battle Royale is coming out hopefully in the next month or two, and I'm really excited to get my hands on that. I think you guys will see a lot more Battle Royale content than multiplayer content from me. But yeah, I think that'll do it, guys. That's basically all that I wanted to talk about. You know, imbalance perks, bad connections, lack of content, minimap, the game being slow paced and camper friendly, the tanks and ground war, bad spawns, which is still a thing. They haven't really adjusted those. In TDM you can get spawn trapped, but you can't spawn trap in domination. The domination spawns are still terrible. There's still OP weapons like the M4 and 725, and skill based matchmaking is probably worse than you thought. It adjusts your in-game stats to balance you against players who are not as good as you. So is Modern Warfare still trash in 2020? I mean, if you liked it on day one, you'll still like it now. If you didn't like it on day one, you'll still hate it. So that's my opinion, guys. And yeah, if you guys have any topics that you'd like me to cover, you know, be sure to comment. I would be interested to hear what you guys have got to say. Thank you for making it to the 18th minute of this video. If you watch this video to the end, even comment King loves Euphrates Bridge. I will always love to see who watches to the end. And yeah, apart from that, guys, I hope you had a happy new year. I've been taking a little break from streaming, just spending time with family. I have missed making content and streaming, so you guys will see a lot more of me in the coming weeks when I get back onto schedule and back into routine. Much love, thank you for all the support in 2019, and let's make 2020 a better year. But much love, guys, catch you next time. This has been King, good luck, and peace out.